Is liberty dying where you live? Escape to Keene at freekeene.com.
All right, everybody. So I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. If you are VIP and you are not yet signed up for the VIP dinner tonight, there is a sign-up sheet at the registration table, so make sure you don't miss that. From what we heard from the lunch folks, it was very, very good, and the food will be the same, so it will presumably be very, very good for dinner as well. So we're back, and again, thank you to everybody for coming out to Keenevention this weekend. The weather has just turned out to be incredible this weekend. It's fantastic. So Dave Ridley is here to present to you the news media panel, and I don't think Dave Ridley really needs an introduction. Does anyone in here not know who Dave Ridley is? Okay, we actually do have one. So Dave is the host of the creator, the newsman behind the Ridley Report, and when I was planning a move to New Hampshire, getting Dave's videos was like a lifeline to what was going on up here. It was really a great window into the world, and a real consistent window into the world of activism up here. Dave seemed to really be at everything that was happening. Now there's way too much. Dave can't possibly be at everything, but wherever he is, he's always got an interesting perspective, and he always gets the news in a lot of cases that nobody else does. He's been arrested a few times for his efforts, and he's definitely a hero of mine. I'm glad to have him up here presenting this panel to you. Dave Ridley will also introduce the rest of these wonderful media experts here to talk to you about being in the news media in the Liberty Movement in New Hampshire.
Thanks, Ian. All right, I have 4 guests with me. James Schlessinger on the right. Conan Salada, still saying that correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. And you're with Rise Up, not Rise Up Media, but the Black Sheep Rising, that's right. And Mark Edge from Free Talk Live, and Darryl Perry from FPP News. FPP.cc is your website, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the 5 of us, if it's okay with you guys, we're now just going to surrender to you. Rather than give you a speech, we're guessing some of you have got questions. We're just going to let you ask them and let things go where they go. In fact, if you want to, you can come up here and I'll hand you a mic and you can ask the question on the microphone. That would probably be ideal.
There's the mic
okay, that's
right
great.
there.
Awesome. Okay. So now, if for some reason you can't think of any questions to ask, I love to talk and I'll think of something to say. But my recommendation would be that
you can start this off, Dave.
I beg your pardon?
Start this off. Start the first round.
Yes, you get it going.
Could each of you just tell us a little more in more detail about what you do in news media?
Go ahead, JJ.
All right. Currently, I don't do a whole lot.
Excellent. Get on.
In the past, I've did the Free Keene TV, producer of that TV show, and worked a lot of video, just documenting what's going on. Free Talk Live. I have Starfall Media, which I do for video work. And really, currently, I don't do a whole lot of media. But
Does Liberty Forum and PorcFest.
That's right. And, well, not this last PorcFest, but they've done that. And then the Free Keene Press, so newspaper. Neocache Radio, that's right. I do have a podcast. Oh, my God. Okay, so I have so much going on, I forget about it. And so a lot of various things. Right now, okay, the radio, podcast. It's good stuff.
My name is Conan Salada. I currently I do a weekly vodcast called Black Sheep Rising, which is a liberty-oriented vodcast, and we focus heavily on the activism that's going on here in Keene. You know, I try to have a round table event every Sunday night where, you know, the people who are actually on the front grounds here, I like to give them an opportunity to, you know, talk about what they're doing and what they're going up against. And the neatest part about it is it's just like Free Keene TV and Shire TV, which was followed directly after.
It's nothing like Free Keene TV and Shire TV.
It is absolutely, it's a little salty. A little. We talk about whatever. and we don't hold any punches back. But I mean, the neatest part about it is it also airs on late night television here in Keene, so that the residents can get a nice dose of what we're doing, and so they know that we're here. We definitely leave our presence here. I got my first hate call the other day. And
This person actually called you on the phone.
Oh, yeah, we talked for 20 minutes. It was a great conversation. I think I didn't turn him around, but I definitely got to argue my point and to let him know, why we're doing what we're doing and why the city really isn't, doesn't really care for him. Am I going out of?
Did you record the call?
It is. And
Awesome.
But I haven't re-listened to it, so I don't know if that'll be worthwhile. But I haven't re-listened to it, so we'll see how maybe I'm just playing it up.
Note that there can be danger to recording a phone call, so one should generally inform the person that they're being recorded.
Correct. And sometimes I forget. I got the app on the phone, and it's recording everything all the time. And so, yeah, good point. I forgot to.
So, he's being notified now.
Only thing I know is he's in Ward 1 and he's not voting for me.
This is an important thing with regard to Liberty Media. Is people think that it's bad to get attacked, but as long as there's publicity, it's good to get attacked if there's no permanent damage. So.
Absolutely. And so, it's been going on for, I think we're at our 24th episode now. By the way, Darryl is one of the regular co-hosts, and if you want to see a guy lose his cool on a regular basis, great show to tune into.
I think that Conan has made it a point to try to annoy me in every episode. I think the over-under is about 12 for F-bombs. So, yeah, it is a very late-night show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I do Free Talk Live, which is a nationally syndicated radio program. It's on 125 stations across the country. And we've got, I'm going to guess, thousands of episodes in the can. I don't know. Maybe we're on up to 10,000, but I'm thinking at least 10,000 hours. And what I really liked about the introduction that Ian gave was that we're experts on the news media in the Liberty Movement in New Hampshire. Because I don't know anything about news reporting, and I don't know anything about the radio industry. I only know about what we've done here, and we've had, watched successes and we've watched failures, but this is completely uncharted territory. Experts mean the people who've taken the arrows already. That's all that means.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
please interrupt.
I'm former
There's the closest thing I would call to an expert is that guy over there.
And the guys who write the history books.
Yeah, there's that, yeah.
I was going to say, I'm former mainstream press, so I do see huge historical movements happening here, and I see the Liberty media coming forth, and there's all kinds of interesting things about the way this exists as a niche distinct from the mainstream press, but we can talk about that later. And Darryl,
I have a question for you once we're done with the introductions.
So my name is Darryl W. Perry, and I own and operate a small publishing company that I've run for a little over 4 years now. 4 years, started in June of 2009. In November of 2009, after the drone bomber in chief was given Nobel's Peace Prize, I decided to start my own. And this man sitting next to me, as well as Derek J. Freeman and several others, are nominees for the 2013 FPP Peace Prize.
I'm putting my push behind Edward Snowden, so if you want to go back there and vote.
For the first time ever, there are paper ballots, so you can go back to the table there in the middle and vote for that. I've been publishing books since late 2008, I believe. I believe I'm up to either 19 or 20 titles total that I have published. Recently started republishing a lot of classic literature because those sell really well. So it's a nice way for me to make a little bit of easy money. I also put out a monthly newspaper that you can snag copies of. That's FPP News. I do a couple of podcasts. There's the weekly FPP Freedom Minute, which is a 5-minute weekly newscast that I've been doing for almost 2 years, I think. Started that when I was still down in Texas. Little over 2 years. I think I'm at episode 115. So divide that by 52 weeks in a year, and little over 2 years. I've got a weekly radio show, Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, that next week I celebrate episode number 50. So there will be guests the entire show to commemorate episode 50. I'm also a co-host of Free Talk Live and one of the regulars on Black Sheep Rising. And I think that I sort of have every sort of outlet of media that I know of covered. If I knew how to transmit through your microwave and your toaster oven, I would probably be doing that as well.
Now, Darryl, let's not forget that being in the media isn't just some face in front of people, but it's a business. Yes. And you do the business aspect of Free Talk Live, too.
Yes, I began doing affiliate relations about 3 weeks ago. And it appears as though that's going to be funded on a longer-term basis. And, of course, you can help make sure that that is funded by donating to the AMP project, which is Advertise, Market, and Promote, amp.freetalklive.com.
Good plug. Okay, so here's my question, Dave.
I'm known for shameless plugs.
Shamelessness, at least. So here's my question about what's going on in New Hampshire. For 10 years now, it was about 2003 that the Free State Project picked New Hampshire, is that right? About
Yes.
10 years, some really awesome and unusual things have been going on. Awesome, or awful, depending on exactly, what you think about it. And at the same time, we've seen the rise of reality television. We've seen that people are willing to watch normal folks starve themselves to death on a desert island, or some of my favorites, which is like long-running documentaries on the life of drunkards in New Jersey's lying beach area.
Jersey Shore.
Yeah, right. Documentaries on
Those people actually wrote books.
No, they didn't.
Their names are on the titles as if they wrote the books.
And you missed publishing them. So, and there's documentaries on people catching alligators. There's documentaries on people running a freaking pawn shop. There's documentary television. Admittedly, it's a strange form of documentary going on every sort of mouth-breathing moron on television.
Hillbilly hand fishing.
They can't. No one has thought well enough of the Liberty Movement to step up and do a reality television program about something as interesting as what's going on in the free. I mean, if Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree wasn't the best pilot for a real life, why is this not being seen by these people? Is it intentional? Is it accidental? What is it? I just don't understand.
I don't know.
Are you saying why haven't we turned the Keene Activity Center into a camera-ridden? We already have enough cameras there, but ones that are on and set up at all times. And
I don't think that it's not possible that you guys already have enough footage in the can to put out 2 seasons. I think that's already done.
Robin Hooding could be a series unto itself.
Yeah, James and I are talking about maybe doing a Robin Hood movie.
So it's
right now.
But as a movie, it's then you can do independent. I'm just wondering why these channels, why how come there has been such an incredible disconnect? They're taking what they call YouTube stars and Amanda Billy Rock. They're taking YouTube stars and they're trying to make television programs out of them, and in like the Talking Orange, the Annoying Orange, or something like that. And I don't understand why there's been this kind of miss with because this has got to be ratings. I mean,
I think it's intentional.
It could be. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory, right? I don't know.
If this were to come up into discussion at one of the board meetings of a network or something like that, they would pretty quickly ask themselves, are we going to get any heat from the FCC as a result of giving coverage to people who want the FCC abolished?
I guess. I mean, when I see American gypsies fighting at weddings and like bloodying each other's faces with bar stools, I think to myself, what possibly could go more wrong here? I don't know.
And it seems like most of these reality television shows that you're referencing are not on broadcast television. They're on cable-specific television, so there's not really the FCC oversight that would apply to ABC and CBS and Fox and PMS, NBC, and N.
If Ben Bernanke wants you off the air, you're off the air.
It could be that. I don't know.
Then that's the
Walter?
Federal Reserve, not the FCC.
Oops,
Well,
yeah.
There's one person who's ultimately in charge. So,
The head guy of the Bilderbergs.
no, I think ultimately Ben Bernanke runs the country. So,
I think there could be two answers to that question, by the way.
All ears.
Is the one side of it is, we don't believe this is happening. You know what I mean? I started out long before the Free State Project looking for liberty, and we see it happening, and we're like, wow, we're not caught up with, jumping in front of it so much.
So you're saying it's bound to happen.
Well, I think so. And then there's another side to it too, is that a lot of us are interested in privacy, and there are things that I may not want, to have announced on, a big TV kind of show to. Because some of us are on the edge of things, and
Right, but I think Mark's question is more along the lines of there's already hundreds of hours of video every week being put out by activists.
Yeah.
Why is that not being turned into some form of television show? We don't have to put television cameras in Abel Freeman's living room.
we could just repackage it and and edit it and put it together into a useful tool.
yes, that's it. Here's the suggestion. Instead of pining about why Hollywood's not doing it for us, just go out and do it yourself.
So I had two other questions.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Repackage.
So, what do you guys see as the future? I mean, part of what's going on here is not just a big club that we all talk amongst each other. We actually, I think, want to attract liberty-type people, or people that are thinking about liberty, being liberty-type people, into the fold, and improve our position in that regards. I just wonder if you guys have, each of you, something to say about how you see that going forward, and any evidence that it's actually happening. And the other thing is, I want to see a timeline chart for the curve of affiliates for Free Talk Live. I just want to see that chart.
I want to see the paycheck for the person who's going to do it. I just can't afford it. I just can't afford it. But it needs to be done. I agree with you. It's something that.
I don't know.
It's Johnson is the person to talk to about that.
There is data, and I could probably go through and try to compile something, because I know where most of the data is, at least of the current affiliates. I don't have the previous, so you wouldn't see the little dips whenever anybody was lost.
I've got that going back to 2008.
So if somebody sends me the data, I could definitely compile that data.
So money. Just to interrupt. Your answer is money. Your answer is money. Your answer is money. The money is the answer. That's why things aren't getting done, because people aren't getting paid to do them. People aren't going to do them by themselves because they have to work a job, have a social life, and do whatever they do.
As far as
money is the answer.
As far as for the future of where I see things going, internet. Print is dying. Even though I hate to say that, as much as I love holding physical copies of books, print is dying. Ebooks are the future as far as publishing is going. As far as radio and podcast, iHeartRadio has drastically expanded recently, adding in a entire talk section You can listen to my weekly radio show, Peace, Love, Liberty, on iHeartRadio. You can listen to Derek J. Freeman's Peace News Now on iHeartRadio.
Daryl.
You can listen to Angel Clark. You can listen to Free Talk Live. So more and more people are going to be exposed to these ideas because of that app on their phone and just flip through of, let me see what's on here.
I want to put in a very cautious caveat on what you're saying about the future being internet. It is internet until they shut the internet. So I would urge people
I don't
to
think
have...
they're ever actually going to be able to shut down the internet.
Something will happen that will make it more difficult, and at that point...
And then the internet will be replaced by something beaming into your iPhone that's actually implanted into your eye.
Just in case you're wrong, I would urge people to have a ham radio or have
People are working on it.
have a lot of ability to distribute information through paper, or just be ready for no internet.
The internet has been already halfway shut down. They opened up a website called Facebook, which delivers pablum to the audience. And frankly, web traffic has nearly cut in half on regular websites because people are going to. I mean, Facebook has half the internet. Google has the other half of the internet. And as a result, the independent publishing aspect of the internet has, to some extent, been kicked in the crotch.
I just want to say that with regards to money, I'm pledging right now to pay for a year of AMP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So here's my prediction on the Liberty Movement, and generally and specifically in New Hampshire. Okay, first off, I think that socialism started on its rise in the 1850s, really caught some traction somewhere in the 1910s or thereabout after the intellectuals had internalized it, and we've been seeing that for now. Now, that it has sort of inherent in it advantages for governments, so they're much more likely to take it on. But the Liberty Movement has been talking for a good 40 or 50 years, and I think that this is the time for it. With what we saw with Ron Paul in 2008 and then 2012, and you can see people are really into it. They don't know what to do precisely, and I think we're going to see a lot of different answers for people in that area. I've done a lot of studying on Quakers, and I call them proto-libertarians because so much of what they did is very similar. There's a Quaker offshoot called the Shakers. Now think agorist as I'm talking about Shakers for a second. So these people, besides being folks that didn't have sex, forget that part.
That's no fun. So libertarians.
Lived in houses.
Single libertarians.
Willingly didn't have sex. They lived in houses, in dormitories together. They worked in sort of communes, building things, sold those things to the community. Because they were religious, they didn't need to pay property taxes, but they willingly did in order to be accepted in their communities. And they created everything themselves. By the way, they still make for decades they made brooms, and that was where they really sort of made their money. But they also made naturopathic medicines, and once the FDA came along, that kind of killed them in that aspect too. But they really they did some amazing things. And my concern is for the Liberty Movement is that we understand freedom because we've experienced tyranny. We understand peace because we've experienced in our heart the desire to, violently react to other people who wish to take away our liberties. I'm afraid that our kids or our grandkids aren't going to know those things. And the Quakers, for instance, Smedley Butler, the guy who wrote War is a Racket, was 2 or 3-time Medal of Honor winner, depending on how you rack that up. He left his Quaker farm and his dad, and he went off and he joined the military to kill people because he didn't understand why peace was important. He had to go experience war for himself to understand. And I think that what we can do best is to teach our kids what it means and why it is. And it's difficult for people who have never experienced it to understand and internalize these things. So that's what my concern is the Liberty Movement's going to have some level of smaller government success in New Hampshire. And then, whatever that means, I don't think some kind of free market anarchism is going to take over in New Hampshire anytime soon through the legislative process. But I think that we're going to see smaller government as the rest of the nation sees larger government. And I wonder what our kids are going to think. The people that move here for the more freedom that we've created, are they going to be as ideologically pure? Seems unlikely. So what we have to consider for ourselves is what are we going to create, but not only how do we preserve what we've created.
If we can just get through the next 10 years with a 95% survival rate of our movement, I think then we can worry about it. But yeah, I guess it's good to be thinking really far ahead, and that's gonna spawn a lot of thoughts in me later, I know. Anyway, Russell, you had a question.
This is off topic for what you just were saying. When do I get Free Talk Live again on my XM radio?
So Ian, can I answer this question? How much of am I allowed to tell here? Okay, so we think that we're going to be back on in the spring, but nothing's true till the contract's signed. And
even then, it's not true until it actually happens.
We have some in, and we've had some level of talks, and I will do whatever it takes. It's the single best affiliate we've got. I'll go so far as prostituting Ian out for this. I mean, whatever it takes, I'll get it done.
Just so people know, it's not like they just lost Free Talk Live. A whole channel went away, and they're one of the
2 channels, I believe.
No, it's like 6.
Many. Yeah.
Keith has a question.
Predictions?
Thank you.
You're not supposed to say his name. He's got it covered.
This panel has so much knowledge, but Mr. Schlesch, you have such a varied experience when you've helped run TV shows and radio. You've helped with podcasts, printing, filming. So since you have such a variety of vast knowledge, I was just wondering, what is your favorite brand of Liberty Media? Is it when you were running the radio or the TV?
Thank you, Keith. Keith, everyone just want to point out Keith is the NHLA Activist of the Year for, I think, at least a couple years. Great guy over here. Thank you, Keith. I think my favorite one was the TV show as far as personal, but as far as getting the message out, I think things like Free Talk Live, the radio, the sort of podcast, it's packaged for people and they can listen to it when it's convenient for them, and they can also drive or work or whatever. So I think that's probably the best. Otherwise, I think short and sweet. I mean, short little videos, especially on YouTube, and just have some production value. That's really it.
Speaking of what JJ just said, those videos on YouTube are pretty powerful still. I don't think we have an excessive number of YouTubers. We may have an excessive number of podcasts that aren't getting a lot of hits. But the 2 big weak links in the chain that I see right now is we do not have enough people taking all this video that's coming out and editing it into something. I'm way bogged down in editing. I spend little time shooting compared to what I do editing, and yet there's not enough editing. So if you want to have an effect, especially without leaving your house, just get some free editing software, or use Windows Movie Maker or whatnot, and just start editing some of these videos into real stories. Like, for instance, you could take this panel here and illustrate it with video that you find in other places, or you could take any of the panels from PorkFest and do the same thing with them. I can't get to them all. So that would be powerful, because if you illustrate a speech, it becomes more than a speech. And the other thing that could be done that is a big black hole, I think, is there's not enough ambush interviews happening. Hardly anyone's doing them. That's why I do them, is because they're not being done otherwise for the most part. There are a few exceptions. Garrett Ian is one, but it would be nice to see. So those are 2 things. If you just like to shoot more ambush interviews, would be great. If you just like to edit, then editing videos about what's happening in New Hampshire liberty activism would be pretty effective.
And I just want to reiterate what Dave said about Windows Movie Maker. It's very easy. So if you don't have time to learn some of the much more complex softwares that JJ could give 5-hour presentations on, and you would still not know everything about the software, Windows Movie Maker, you can simple editing, and it comes out with a pretty decent product as long as you put in decent video.
And by the way, as far as the raw video is concerned, We have a YouTube channel, FR33 Freeman TV
It's
Raw.
Freeman TV Raw with the number 3 instead of the letter E in Freeman.
And everything coming out of Keene, cop blocking, Robin Hooding, going down to the park and taking shots at ducks. I mean, all this stuff is going straight there, countless hours, and it's all available for anyone to use.
Parking enforcers feeding dogs for some odd reason is videotaped.
This is true.
So, this is really true when it comes to the editing aspect. For one, I think that Free Talk Live is 21 hours a week. I don't know anybody who has the equivalent of a part-time job, the time to listen to Free Talk Live, unless you've got a job where, you just don't have to engage your ears. And that's great, and I love that people can do that. But I wonder how much more effective it would be if somebody with some level of editing skill and time would take Free Talk Live and turn it into a once a week 1 hour audio podcast, and then sell it. Make money on it, please. If you can just do that and take the best parts of 21 hours a week of audio and do that. Secondarily, I really think one can take this video, turn it into a reality TV program, shop it around in Hollywood, get on one of these cable news channels, and at this point we've got 300 channels on television, and everybody's getting basically 0.1s as far as ratings go. It's not that big of a deal. As long as they have content in which to put ads, they'll put it up. It's just that it hasn't been presented to them. If the show could be created with audio and video in mind, so that perhaps a podcast could be ripped off of it, meaning the audio could be ripped off of it and turned into a podcast. What I think you've got there is an incredible money maker that would dwarf things like Free Talk Live, personally, and it could do it in a year.
And I would like to point out that even though it's not in New Hampshire, you do have to give some credit to John Bush and Kat Bleich down in Austin in the Move to Central Texas project for putting out their own reality TV show, Sovereign Living.
I hope it gets shopped around.
Definitely kudos.
Because a lot of people want to be in front of the camera. They don't want to be behind it and do all the work that goes in behind it.
Right.
I don't know what.
Talking about video editing, just for briefly, video editing is extremely time consuming. Like a video that I make, and I don't even talk about, it's not even high grade. It's just the amount of production quality you need to have a sort of slick finish. You're looking at an hour per minute. So an hour per minute base cost for video. That's you think about every day you got a full-time job, and then how many hours per minute can you fit in, and then have a social life, eat food, live a little bit. So video editing, like anything else, it all comes down to the money. You have to have sustainable activism if you're going to do video work. You need to make money off of it somehow, some way, or have some ability, like a savings, because it's going to take up your time. And you're not going to be able to be productive if you're not making money. And it's just going to be a short-time thing. You're going to burn out, and you're going to stop doing it. That's the truth.
So we need the Koch brothers.
So you got to make money doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you won't keep it up. It'll be a flash in the pan, and it'll be a lesson. Sure, it's valuable. But if you want something that's going to be there, like a Free Talk Live, it's got to be profitable for your time. And that's really what it comes down to with all of this. All the media should be profitable. Now, sure, your time might just be, I spent half an hour writing a blog post, or an hour writing a blog, there's all kinds of little ways you can do this sort of stuff through the media. And I think the blog is overlooked. I think blogging is still really good as far as getting your message out there in a short amount of time commitment and having an impact. So it comes down to what you want to do, what you're comfortable doing, and how much time you have. And so really, we can want the editing to happen for all this stuff, but it's really not going to happen until someone comes up with some bucks.
I would say you're absolutely right for long-term goals, but you've got to start somewhere, and you're not necessarily going to make any money on your first episode of whatever you're doing.
You might not make money the first month or the first year
or ever.
The first 5 years.
You might completely burn out and decide it doesn't work for you at all. But I mean, you've got to start somewhere.
No. You can make money quickly, if not much, but quickly. Because when I started doing this thing, I was making money immediately when I started doing the Ridley Report.
Well, what he's saying is he didn't say you can't. He said you probably won't.
Oh, I mean, I think you probably will. As long as you market it a little bit and do quirky ads.
But I think you need to have. I think you need to be realistic, and keep in mind the training that you're getting. Camera work, editing, all that is working towards making money one day, but be realistic. It might never happen. But maybe all you're doing is, trying to get more people to move here. You're trying to show and really put a spotlight on what's going on here in Keene, which is what I'm doing. And it's not really important to me at the end of the day to make money. I would love to make money, but I would also. But I'm also trying to get a message out there, so it's not that important to me. But I do have a job as well, so I mean, it's not like I am dependent upon it. Just be realistic about what you're doing, and keep in mind that whatever you do, as long as you are doing a good job and you're investing your time, I mean, it could be used down the road on that ultimate project, or helping someone else finish an ultimate project that does make money. So yeah.
Both when producing and consuming liberty-oriented media, you can often get the feeling that we're doing a lot of talking to each other. And I wonder, so talking to people who already get it versus talking to people who have no idea about the ideas we talk about. I mean, sometimes I find a piece of media that for me is just like, bam, that just hit it right on, and I go to share it with some friend of mine, and they're like, that's insane, and then they don't ever want to watch or listen to anything else I shared with them. So is there a difference in the type of media that you produce to target people who don't already get it?
That's the genius of Jason Soren's plan, is that we don't have to reach out necessarily to people who don't agree with us. It's better if we do. But if we were only producing videos that were to the liberty movement and no one else got it, well, many of the people watching those videos are outside New Hampshire and will move here. So even if we miss that mark that you're talking about, we still hit the other. So Jason has set it up so that, location, location, location. It's all about the location. Most liberty movements or most political movements, if they anger people, it's really bad. But here, if we anger people, we just get more attention and we have more recruits. So we can win almost no matter what happens. So that's that advantage. But I think you're right that we should be producing some media that reaches out to people who don't agree with us.
And that's one of the wonderful things about Free Talk Live, which I'm one of the co-hosts of, is that it's heard on 125 stations across the country at various times during the week. And people that don't agree with us on everything, or even 80% of the things, sometimes not even 50% of the things, will listen to the show. There are people that are diehard progressives that listen to the show because of the anti-war message. There are people that can't stand the anti-war message but listen because of the taxes are horrible message. So people listen to Free Talk Live. And I have to agree with Mark that Free Talk Live is probably the greatest outlet for getting out the liberty message, especially to people that don't necessarily agree with everything or most of the things. One of the things that I personally like to do on my radio show is have different guests on.
What's the name of the show again?
Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Oh, cool.
And I do like to sort of spotlight some of the activists that are doing things, but I also like to find people that aren't necessarily liberty activists that are doing things that I like and get them on, and then they have their friends listen and they share it with their friends, and then people that don't necessarily agree with us will listen to the show and hear stuff.
Well, here's an idea. if you want to get in touch with people or you want to communicate with people that don't get it, then don't use the language of the people who get it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's a whole language shift that's changed, and you can especially see it in CopBlock. If you go to copblock.org and check that out, you'll see the way they describe what happens. Now, they describe it in a very literal manner in which if a person hits another person, it's called a person hitting another person, right? It's very much like a 5-year-old explaining it to a kid. So when they say someone was accosted by the police, a normal person might see that and have a person who doesn't get it, I should say, might see that and have some issues understanding what's being said. Whereas if you say someone was arrested, and then you can still communicate the message in sort of a more low-key fashion, I think using the language that people are used to hearing is a great way of communicating with them. And too often here with the liberty speak, it's easy to use words that have been adopted by the community or people within this sort of mindset. And these words sometimes make communication difficult with people who don't get it.
Lib-pair.
What's that?
Ancapistan, that's a word that the Freedom Fiends came up with for
exactly.
the
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Country.
He just lost me on his whole message.
Libpar.
And anyway, let's give Free Talk Live another plug. Woo! Everybody, Free Talk Live.
Well, Sun Tzu said, so in war, the way is to strike at what is weak and avoid what is strong. And so you want to hit the government over the head peaceably, over
non-violently.
Yes, over its the fact that it apparently let a guy become paralyzed while in custody, or the fact that they hit somebody 15 times after they were on the ground. Something the average person can latch onto. Like if I'm going to do an ambush interview, I want to ambush interview them about the worst thing they've done, not about should you be aggressing against peaceful people. It's much better to come after them for something that the public kind of can get on your side with.
Like I love the question that you asked Governor Maggie Hassan about should your cops be stealing recording devices from citizen journalists?
That's a great one, and it comes up many times.
And of course, she totally ignored you and started talking to somebody wearing one of the military uniforms that was standing by the door.
And then she refused to shake any military hands, but would shake any other hands. So that got her into a different kind of trouble.
So I think that there really is a role for reaching out to the average individual. There's a role for everything. Like as steel sharpens steel, we need to have conversations about what is moral, right, and just inside the liberty movement. And that's happening a lot. I love how the sort of left libertarians and sort of the right libertarians talk to each other about issues. Yeah, sometimes, we can certainly be abrasive in our conversations, but if one can get past the abrasiveness and listen to what's being said, maybe that's good. And to me, it's just got to be good.
Yeah, I just the abrasive comment. I recently started listening to LRN regularly.
Okay,
at home,
great.
And
me too. I love that thing.
Yeah, and my roommate's comment to me is, sometimes I get what you're saying, but everyone on that station is just so damn angry all the time, and I just don't want to listen to angry people all the time.
Yeah. I think that's...
I do.
Yeah, right. I think that you're absolutely right when it comes to that the best way to deliver, especially to the non-liberty community, is to have as even of a keel as one can. I think it's difficult, right? Like, it's really difficult to deal with a frustrating person talking about a frustrating issue and dealing with them as though they are a first grader and being kind to them. And I think that that's the best thing to do when one's reaching out. When one's speaking on the inside, I understand why they're, going back and forth and that kind of thing. I shared a Stefan Molyneux video one time on my timeline rather than on Free Talk Live's timeline, because I really liked it. It was the one about that essentially countries are farms, and that we're their livestock. I loved it. I just thought it was so awesome. And I got not one single positive comment on my timeline because I reserve my timeline for family pictures and pictures of pigs and things, really, banal stuff. And I just thought, man, this one really is going to reach out to people. No, it didn't. It didn't at all. And I think one of the reasons is because mainline media has this built-in expert factor. The fact that a radio salesperson in Sarasota, Florida, could accidentally end up on the radio because his fiance we had broken up a couple of weeks before. I had nothing to do on a Sunday night when the disc jockey in the room, who was 22 years old, asked me to sit in and answer phones for him, somehow has an opinion on the radio, and that makes me an expert. Like, that's just dumb. But it doesn't change the reality of the fact that I'm coming out of 125. I mean, Rush Limbaugh has nothing, or especially in 1989, nothing that made him qualified to speak on the issues that he spoke on when he was on, premiered on WABC talking about Rio Linda, or wherever the hell that is in California. And it's interesting how these mainline media still give experthood to individuals, whereas the new media, like, try to fight with somebody on Facebook about a liberty issue. You can have the most solid position in the world, and they won't speak to you on points. They will not debate you in a logical format. They'll wiggle around, and it's just not worth it.
With regard to anger, it is important to a large extent to quell anger, but you can't replace it with a vacuum, and it's hard to replace it with love, But what you can pretty easily replace it with is being amused. And that's what I've discovered, is like I just get more and more amused at the crazier and crazier things bureaucrats say to me, and they're all just a comedy show for me now. It's just like, what? Are you really gonna? Oh, I can't believe it. And it's just if you're maybe not necessarily laughing at them, but being amused, your tongue's in your cheek, that replaces the anger pretty well. And it's very important to do that, because the public judges demeanor more than it judges the rightness of your position.
And the sad thing is, a lot of people don't pick up on sarcasm these days. So I've said things on Free Talk Live with tongue firmly planted in cheek, and then callers will call in and tell me how wrong I am about something that I said as nothing but sarcasm, because they did not pick up on it.
So I guess what I should have, I'm going to completely restate. I like to be as kind as I can when dealing with new people and to explain things in a new way that maybe they don't ever hear things. But I think that every attitude, including lampooning them, and frankly, Alex Jones does a fine job and makes a great living being angry as hell. And so maybe there's a position for everybody out there, and that's fine. I just think there's too much of the angry, and I try to replace it in myself, but I fail at least weekly, if not nightly.
Dan, you had another question?
Well, just to change it a little bit, on Facebook again, I came across a post from one of the folks that was mostly occupied before and now kind of crosses both lines, as I'd like to think I do, but not quite as much as some of the others. She had a sociology assignment and some project, and she wanted to make that project the FSP, the Free State Project. And she said, "Oh, it's all approved and all of this," and we're just going back and forth, in comments on this one post, and the next thing I know, I say, well, when you do it, post what you come up with. I would like to see it. And the next thing you know, she's saying, well, they're shutting me off because you're not going to be able to find traditional book-sourced references. That the internet is not good enough as a source for a sociology project. And I'm thinking, I bet you that wasn't part of that deal until the Free State Project came up. The academia in this realm is far to the I'm afraid of liberty realm. I mean, whatever realm that is, a progressive or, and the fact is that, I just went back and forth with her and others. She changed it to the Beat Generation, and I'm thinking, somebody ought to find out who that sociology teacher is, and I'm wondering if there was something from beyond that teacher that brought this up. If there was some project description, they should name the acceptable sources and stuff like that. And we have Brian Wright, who's written books about the Free State Project.
Catch up with me later, Dan, because I want to do a video about what happened to your friend.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, what can we do about that? I mean,
we will launch a full investigation. We have funding from the Koch brothers. I don't know if you know this. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Maybe I need to buy 2 amperes.
There's these kids out back with this van and this dog, and they said they solve mysteries, and so we'll just hire them. Free market.
I want Schnurgenberger money.
No.
It seems it's one of those questions of what is considered a legitimate news source. And, there actually are several people here in New Hampshire that have their news outlets registered with the Supreme Court of New Hampshire so that when they go into court, they don't have to fill out papers every time they want to film a case. Certain bailiffs try to ignore that such registration exists, even when they are shown the media registration form 3 inches away from their face. They still want to stand there and say, shut that camera off or else. And then when you don't comply, all of a sudden they go back, talk to the judge, and the judge says, yeah, let them film. So it's that weird line of they don't want to acknowledge our legitimacy, even though we go through their processes to get their papers saying that we are legitimate. So it could be something very similar with the sociology professor of not wanting to accept certain sources as legit, whereas he probably would have accepted Huffington Post, Salon.com, CNN.com, or a lot of other more quote-unquote mainstream sources.
Liars.
So, but my answer would be yes, this, but in the sort of the long term is essentially you have to make New Hampshire so darned unpleasant for those that would use the hammer of the state to get their way in whatever way they do it, that they'll move to Greenfield or Brattleboro, I see
Don't
Vermont.
mess up Brattleboro with that kind of
Brattleboro
status.
is long since messed up with that kind of stuff. They're full on messed up with statism.
They still like guns, though.
No, they don't in Brattleboro. Now, I can see Vermont from my house. I'm not asking my statist neighbor for much to say, hey, look, there's a bridge. Just go over there. And I'm not trying to, this is really the practical application of what the Free State Project is. We cannot live with statists. And that's really it. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Pam Martin. Now, Pam Martin, as Dawn, who chuckled the loudest, would know, was a lady who she wrote for Counterpunch, which is a full-on commie blog, and she wrote these exposés in the Free State Project and pointed out Free Talk Live as receiving Koch money and Jason Sorens as being funded by the Koch brothers, and she was investigating as to how my house was owned because it's owned by a limited liability company, so it must have been given to me by Soros or Murdoch or whomever. I'm not sure, but it's terrible. And just was creating all kinds of fusses, and she whipped herself into such a lather and going after so many people so often that she finally basically had a breakdown and left the state. And I don't want this. I don't want mental illness for these people.
Great job, Mark.
I don't want that for them, but this, I think to some extent, she's a canary in the coal mine for what's going to happen as time goes by, is it's just going to be uncomfortable. Look, I can work as a school teacher the next state over and make twice as much money. Why am I here? I can work as a college professor at the University of Vermont instead of the University of New Hampshire, or the University of Maine. Why am I here? And that we need to make them ask those questions of themselves. They have 49 states. They can give up one. That's what I say. And I'm not asking them for the biggest one. I'm not. It's 1.4 million.
Let's have a cat fight over this, Mark, because I don't see it that way.
Great.
After the 90s and ethnic cleansing in Bosnia, we do not need to be talking about trying to get people to leave our state.
I'm not asking them to leave. I'm just going to make it uncomfortable to live here.
I don't even want that, unless their discomfort comes from them trying to hurt people.
That's what they do for a living.
Some of the time.
Hold on. When you say them, are you talking about the people in control, or just the little statist next door that doesn't want you to have your freedom?
That person votes. They are in control.
I vote. I'm not in control.
There's enough of them voting that they're in control. Once they're in 49%, then they don't have control any longer, and then they're going to be in a spiral of being uncomfortable.
Actually, at 49%, they could still be in control because a lot of people in this room don't go to the polling place and cast ballots.
I think we're clear on what I meant. Like 49% of the voting population. Yep.
Because like here in
I'm never going to get Russell to go vote. Like
on Tuesday,
I've tried saying things to him to make him vote, and he won't.
On Tuesday, there's a municipal election in Keene, and probably 10% of the people are going to show up at the poll.
Agreed, and a lot of them are teachers.
Do you have a question
Welcome.
for us?
Hi. So you're basically saying then that you would like statists who vote to basically to leave?
Yeah, I mean, I really would like them to leave, yes.
And so you're basically, you're trying
Or
to
not
say,
vote.
But that means, that's kind of like, there was a congresswoman who said that the best thing we can do is get rid of this threat of New Hampshire, the Free State Project.
We are the largest threat to the state
Free
of New
State
Hampshire.
Project. The Free State is to New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically then just throwing that argument in reverse then.
Okay, I'll go on record that Cynthia Chase is the largest threat to freedom in New Hampshire.
Okay. Well, then wouldn't it be the same way to say then that you're just justifying, you as an individual are just justifying her?
Justifying her?
Well, if your view of her is the same as her view on you, then you're both the same.
We moved here about the same time.
She moved here from Massachusetts and says that she doesn't want people... Rhode Island. Oh, yeah, it's the governor that moved from Massachusetts. Pretty much all of the highly elected Democrats in New Hampshire that are opposing the Free State Project moved here from somewhere else, and are saying, we don't want people moving here.
Okay.
I know.
So it would be like pretty much all of us came into this room at about the same time after lunch, and it would be sort of like me saying, you know, those damn Free Staters are messing up my room in here. I wish they would leave. Well, we all got here at the same time.
Okay, then. How do I put this?
There is a significant difference. They promote violence and deny it. And we do our best to not promote violence.
Okay.
And I think that answer pretty much kind of sews it up. If you want to continue to promote violence, then...
All right. I've been talking to the people, like I'm not a Free State or Free Stater because I don't qualify. Okay. You know, I've always here.
Great.
But it's my experience lately is that it's become more popular to be anti-current establishment than it is to be pro-current establishment.
Okay.
So wouldn't it be a good opportunity to try to promote liberty to even the extreme statists? Because we're already that way.
That's great, but I think that you're going to convert some people, a small percentage of the population. And the reality is once you convert the reality of the situation is that if New Hampshire is to become more free, people who want what we don't consider to be freedom, because freedom means different things to different people, are either going to be unhappy or they're going to leave. I know that they leave because they come to Florida, where I'm from, and they change, they vote down spending there. We're 65. What do we care about kids that, kids' education or whatever? So they come and do the same thing elsewhere. It's an unhappy fact that people have moved in migratory projects throughout history, intentional or unintentional, and displaced people who were already there. And I guess the question that I have for anybody who believes in statism is not, do you agree with what I have to say, but since we know that this is not the pinnacle of human governance, that the representative republic is not the pinnacle of human governance. Something has to come afterwards. Isn't it going to be innovation and trying new things that's going to find us whatever that thing that comes next? And if it's going to be innovation and trying new things, shouldn't I and people who think like me be able to try that somewhere? And if the answer is yes, then where the hell can I do it? Because when I do it in New Hampshire, I know what happens. Like the bludgeon of the state comes down on my head, and they'll take my house away, they'll put me in jail, or they'll do a whole variety of things. Does it have to be Antarctica? I mean, I don't think it does, and I don't know how to solve this problem. I wish I did. I think the best solution is probably creating a religious organization that then buys a piece of property, then doesn't pay property taxes, and then has some kind of commune on that religious property. But then when you're dealing with a bunch of atheists, it makes that very difficult. So,
And when you start saying
I don't know what to do.
And church, people automatically assume cult.
There you go. Fine. So I just don't have a solution. I'd love to convince people, but
okay. So I would disagree with Mark on this point.
Nobody likes the way I phrase this.
Well, no, you just want people to leave, and I think what
they can adopt my point of view.
Okay, I think some individuals are trying to create here in Keene and New Hampshire at large is a alternative. So like Bitcoin is an alternative, for example, and there are businesses starting that will use Bitcoin in some fashion to be more profitable, more efficient, and just a better solution. So, and then they're going to attract customers, and those customers are going to be locals that live here, and they're going to get on the bandwagon because it's more profitable, more efficient, and less hassle. And so, like that's kind of the realm that liberty activism ought to follow. That's the model it ought to mimic. Right? That's a successful model. You mimic things that are successful, like Apple, for example. Apple's a very successful marketing company. Look at how many people mimic Apple in some extent, whether it's the shape or the lines, the smoothness, whatever it is. You find something that's successful and you mimic it. And you grow off of that. You go in the direction that is in your interest. But anyway, that's what the locals, they're going to want to stay here because they're going to realize that the alternatives that we are creating here in the state are better for them. And they're going to save them time, money, health, and everything. And they're going to be like, wow, I just wish I would have known sooner.
But that's where education is going to have to come in, because the simple fact that people benefit from a result doesn't mean that they know why they're benefiting from the result. They just don't know. Like, for instance, today we have fixed rate pricing. When you go to the grocery store, they got a sticker on it. You know how much it costs. Nobody knows that Quakers started that. And before this, when you went to a place to buy a mango, they took a look at you and said, he looks like he could buy a $1 mango, or he looks like he could buy a $10 mango. And they started that way. And people don't know the history. They don't know the reasons why things occur. So if we make a better place, coming back to what I had said previously, if we make a better place, people need to know why we've made a better place. They need to know why it's better.
Well, no, what I'm saying is alternatives. Like, for example, Bitcoin, if they're not using dollars anymore, they don't need to be explained the situation. You're not using the currency of this government because the currency of this government is bad. I mean,
you don't have to pay taxes on cash dollars that you exchange with people.
What I'm trying to explain is that the alternatives being created will explain themselves. They are they're self-contained alternatives to the current state solutions. So Bitcoin being one example.
I disagree.
Okay. And we should get back to media, though.
We should, but real quick, Mark saying that like statists should just leave. What I am hoping to see happen is that New Hampshire will become a polycentric civilization in which statists are free to be statists, and those of us that don't want government are free to live without government, and nobody forces anybody to fund or do or whatever.
Statists are good at that.
So the communist will be able to be communist in a free society, but I'm not allowed to be free in their communist society.
You can be a communist in free society. You cannot be a socialist in a free society. It's just not possible. I mean, it's not the definition of the word. You can't be a fascist in a free society. It's not the definition of the word. In order to be a socialist or a fascist, you must force people to do things.
Well, people can think whatever they want. They should be able to advocate for whatever they want. We can't and shouldn't try to stop them from doing either of those things.
I suppose it's when they're successful at advocating. Once they've advocated for forced redistribution of wealth or human slavery or whatever it is that they've been successful in advocating for, yeah, I mean, I think we got to speak out against that at that time too.
It's questionable that they would say that, but it's their human right to say it.
They're not going to say it in that way. No, it's not popular.
They can say, but they cannot do.
I have racists call into my show all the time. They'll never call in and start the conversation with, you know what, I'm a racist. They never start that way.
William, question. Sorry for the delay.
That's all right. To bring this, to stay on this topic and bring it back to media, what is the purpose of our media? And some people seem to think that the purpose is to produce propaganda and to change hearts and minds. In my opinion, that's a mistake. My parents were missionaries. I don't want to be a missionary. I don't want to be a school teacher. There's plenty of sources for that. If you think that's your calling, that's great. But the model is there are already enough like-minded people out there. The reason we don't have 20,000 signers or even 20,000 movers yet is because of the number of people who already feel the way we do that haven't yet heard about the Free State Project. And so the purpose should be to let them know, in my opinion, to let them know that we're here, they're going to move here. That's how we succeed. Hearts and minds, oh my God, just think of the terminology. Just think of how it's used and how big of a failure. I mean, just hang yourself, really.
Hearts and minds.
If you think that you're going to educate statists and that's your path to freedom, we're going to convert them, good luck.
Yeah, Hearts and Minds is the name of a film about Vietnam and how did Vietnam go. But also, there's the factor of all you have to do to convince the statist is that they just have to be convinced that there is a hard target out there, that they don't want quills in their mouth anymore. That's all you got to educate them about. But the primary purpose of our Liberty Media in New Hampshire should be to inspire people to move here. Secondary purpose would be to make us a harder target because the statists know that if they come after us, they get a lot of bad media attention. And then a tertiary target would be to have certain people change their minds who live here.
You know, I don't see things as, it seems a lot of people see things as black and white. Either you're a liberty activist or you're a statist. And I think that there's a large segment of the population that they just don't know, and they honestly at this point don't care. So a lot of the media that I put out is intended to hopefully find the people that just stumble across it and don't really have a firm opinion about anything, and hopefully they'll either hear or read something that I put out and just start to think about something. There's a lot of police abuse scandals and other sorts of things that I discuss in the police accountability report that I do every week. There's a lot of news stories that I cover in my newspaper and in my weekly commentary and in the radio show that I do. And I'm hoping that somebody will see or hear a story that they haven't heard before and then start to think, and then hopefully maybe fall down a rabbit hole, or maybe not, maybe just, tell somebody else, whatever. It doesn't really matter what they do. I enjoy writing, and I enjoy writing things that will make other people hopefully think. So I know that Will is saying that I should hang myself because my primary objective isn't to make sure that 20,000 people move to New Hampshire as quickly as possible. There are a lot of places that are already promoting that a lot. Free Talk Live talks about the Free State Project at least once, if not 27 times a night. And if you go back and pick up the November issue of FPP News, the top story is Free State Project hits 75% of its goal. So I do promote the Free State Project, but that's not my primary goal. If I were getting paid, then absolutely, it would be my primary goal. I would write about it every day. But my goal is I enjoy writing, so I write about what I want to write about, and hopefully somebody finds it.
I agree definitely with that, that you enjoy doing what you're doing, and that's why you do it, and you're, accomplishing, many goals on the side, but you're doing what you love to do, and I think that's the most important. At the end of the day, for example, both Darryl and I worked on Shire TV for 34 episodes, and it was half an hour, it was easier, but it was really newsy, and at the end of the day, I didn't enjoy doing it. I really felt, after Free Keene TV moved, we pretty much created the same program with just different actors, and I didn't enjoy it. So we moved on to another.
It felt too much like work without the reward of work.
Right, and what we're doing now is a lot easier. It's a lot more fun and enjoyable, and it's something we haven't touched on. There's a nice dose of comedy that goes along with what we're doing now, and I think that is something that a lot of libertarians miss on, because they're so serious all the time, and everything they're all research, science, and seriousness. But I mean, there's not enough comedy, and sometimes a lighter
People
heart.
forget to have fun.
Well, did you know that your show, Conan, while James and I were trying to ambush interview the city manager, all they wanted to talk about was your show.
Exactly. So, I mean,
he didn't want to answer our questions at first.
So we're talking about 20-something episodes, and so 20 weeks, and more people are catching wind. And it's getting out there. Like I said, I got my first call just the other day, and the guy wasn't really happy with me. But I got the opportunity to talk with the old man for 20 minutes, and I don't know if anything I said sunk in, but it's quite possible that he went away with something, and that's all we're really about at the end of the day.
So, Dave, can I ask you?
That's the hearts and minds thing. It is. I think it is possible, but Will, that's not my goal. My goal is to have a good time. To get more people to move here, and maybe if I change some hearts and minds, then that's the third bird with the third stone that I managed to wing.
Can I ask you about your ambush interview of John McLean? Did he mention at all me calling him a tyrant during the candidates forum?
I don't think so. He just indicated that he enjoys watching the show.
Oh, okay.
Well, we mention him. We call him the Don.
Okay.
So I don't know.
One thing that's nice about your show is that it's not, maybe you air it as a podcast, but primarily it airs on local cable. So it has an effect on local people's thinking to some extent. Some of them, it will make them angry. Others, it will change their mind, a few. And the most important probably that I didn't mention before is it will activate some people as activists who weren't active before. Maybe not a lot, but some.
Well, the New Hampshire Free Press was a paper put out. Russell Catt started that off and distributed it all over New Hampshire in laundromats and various locations. And I think that is an awesome way to get another source of information out in the community that gives a different point of view. The same thing with Free Keene TV. We started as a news show because we wanted it packaged in a way that people are used to accepting for their news. And it was packaged that way to be digestible as news. And it was work. It required at least 16 hours a week for a half an hour of live TV. And, that's we did 52 episodes, so that's quite a commitment of time. But that was the idea of getting the community activated, informing them what's going on, and then trying to deal with a lot of the news they're getting from some of the unfavorable press publishers and whatnot, and giving an alternative to that. So.
Can I throw out something about if you want to do newspaper type stuff like you're doing? When we do the newspaper, it's amazing how the newsprint gives you legitimacy.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yeah.
People look at it.
Those little newspapers are great.
Quality paper, but when diminished
I want to speak to that legitimacy thing. So there's, different sociologists have put out different papers on this subject, and basically 10 to 20% of the population is what they call influencers. People that have at a level of influence between 10 and 20 people in their social circle. And we're not talking about media here. We're talking about you guys in the audience. And I believe that the Liberty Movement has a larger percentage of the population that are influencers. That's my opinion. And that means that 80% of the population isn't an influencer. And they're going to be, some of them are going to be swayable and not, but I think that really something like 50% of the population just doesn't care very much. My co-host Ian was talking to a police officer who didn't, at a protest, who was there to, crack skulls if need be, and he didn't know who Edward Snowden was. He just didn't know who Edward Snowden was. Does he play baseball, right? Like, he didn't know. And that's where a lot of people are, is in that world. And that's why it is good to normalize speaking about the ideas of liberty. What we speak about on Free Talk Live and these other forms of media out there is a concept that sadly is so radical. Human freedom is such a huge departure from the world in which we live, that it needs to be normalized in people's thought. And I think that's what's valuable about speaking to the public at large. Do I think you're going to if you're talking about the 20% of the population on the Nolan chart that comes in as a statist, you're going to change their mind? Probably not. Probably not. More than 1% of them are going to be changed. But the ones that come in as liberal, or the ones that come in as conservative, or the ones that come in as moderate, and if you read that chart and see who comes in as a moderate, it's fascinating. Anyway, they're the most fascinating group to me. And the ones that come in as libertarians, if you can speak to those people, at that point, if you've got 80% of the population believing that something is unacceptable, then the other 20% don't. And I was speaking of full-on racists just a moment ago. These people don't have the bravery to say what they think. They think it, and amongst themselves they'll speak it, but they won't say it out in public. And the reason is that their ideas are so marginal that they can't say them. And that's what we need the ideas of statism, tyranny, to be like. It needs to be so unacceptable that they just can't. The words can't come out of their mouth because they know what people are going to think about them.
Ian, when do you want us to wrap up?
Yeah, one final question for the panel, and I'd like each panelist, including you, Dave, to
I'm taking us to dinner. Come on.
So just to point, the reality show thing that Mark was talking about earlier, I think AKPF #1 probably is the closest thing to a reality show we have. Garrett takes footage from activism, courtroom footage, things like that on a regular basis, cuts it together into a half an hour weekly television program. So I think that kind of exists, but obviously beyond the idea of getting some sort of syndicated series on HBO or the Learning Network or whatever, beyond that vision, what else are we missing? We've got newsprint, we've got radio shows, podcasts, television, book publishing. What are we missing in the New Hampshire Liberty media scene? That's for each of you.
I will take this first, and I think I already alluded to it, broadcasting directly into people's microwaves and toaster ovens. Because I don't really know of any other media outlets that aren't being explored or done to some extent.
Well, without the joke, there is the idea of broadcasting into towns around New Hampshire. That's something we really don't see very much of. It's happened in Keene. It's happened in Manchester. It hasn't happened in Manchester for years. Keene's was recent. There is one currently on 102.3 and 102.5 here in Keene. But it sure would be nice if we had Liberty FM broadcasting in 6, 7, 10 towns across. Why don't we have that? This is not a difficult activism to do. You plug in the transmitter, you plug in the antenna, you plug in the audio feed.
The risk.
And you, well, there's some risk involved, but it really isn't that high. So, I mean, with the hundreds of activists, with over 1,500 activists, why don't we have 15 people who are willing to do this across the state? So that's one thing, but going down the panel, what else are we missing?
Right, you've shown your extrovertism by simply throwing me a softball and then hitting the softball yourself. the most effective thing you can do beyond any other sort of liberty activism likely that's been done is to broadcast LRN.FM, in my opinion, because you turn on a little gizmo. It takes them what apparently is a year to find you. When they do find you, they send a letter to your house. In that year's time, you've reached hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people over and over again with these fascinating shows on LRN.FM, only one of which is Free Talk Live, so it's not necessarily self-promotion. There's dozens and dozens of shows on there. And at this point, normalizing behavior, I think, is the largest thing we can do. And if these things are all over the state of New Hampshire, and frankly, all over America or all over the world, these ideas get spread, or at least in the English-speaking world. I can't wait until we've got another language doing LRN.FM, but we're not there today. So, yeah, I think that the best thing that anyone can do is turn on a transmitter. I don't have one at my house. I'm too scared. The reason is I'm afraid that they'll pull me off of WKBK, the FCC licensed station, if they find out that I transmit a pirate station out of my house. But I think it's huge, and I think that somebody can do it. And from what I can tell, I don't like to take liberties with other people's lives. From what I can tell, it's relatively low risk.
I think we may also have a weak link in the chain when it comes to people just reaching out to the mainstream press. Ian's pretty good about doing that, and he's very good about doing that. He's very good about almost everything. He's like the freaking best activist in the country, practically. but the idea of just getting them, news releases out to the mainstream press whenever something happens to one of our people, and making sure that it's not forgotten in the public, or raising concerns with the mainstream press about any number of things. Letters to the editor also are underdone. So. Yeah, but I think the thing that I'm most worried about is that we may not have the right kind of infrastructure to keep communicating if there's some kind of major crackdown or long-term power shortage.
Before we go to Conan, I just want to speak to your thing of communicating with mainstream press. The weekly articles that I've been writing for going on 5 years now, I send out to a list of somewhere near 500 media around the country. Sometimes it gets picked up, sometimes it doesn't. There's actually a cluster of newspapers outside of San Antonio, Texas, that runs my articles every week.
Awesome.
Koch brother funding, definitely. But I think we have a really strong showing as far as different media. We're all learning from each other, and we're all trying new things. And I think as the movement grows, it will certain channels that are unique in their own right will start to spawn off into others that are very similar. Because right now, we're all kind of doing our own thing. So I'm happy with the turnout, and I think that it would only grow from here. JJ?
I think a couple of things for media, getting new media out there that isn't being done, and I'm thinking more like performance art type things. So putting together it takes some coordination, but the actual time commitments, could vary. But basically putting together like either street shows or more larger or smaller performances, that sort of stuff, sculptures, art, things that get people talking. Maybe I'm sort of thinking Banksy type stuff, but that's kind of my idea to throw out there.
We've got an excellent overpass. They just put up $2.3 million crosswalk. It looks like it's a horrible brown eyesore. I'm thinking it's got Banksy.
That could use some coloring.
Now I'm incriminating myself, but I think it has good Banksy all over it. That'd be the way to go.
Thanks, guys. Great panel. Really appreciate it. And then coming up, the direct action panel is next.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeene.com. FreeKeene.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeene.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeene.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.